I'd like to call this meeting to order for the Weed Beach Meadow and Trail Working Group of the Darien Parks and Recreation Commission. It's Tuesday, April 19th, around 4 o'clock. This first thing on our agenda is the working group introductions. Just to quickly, just so people know why we're on this committee, you know, doesn't have to be a ton of background, but if we can go around doing that first.
Dale Coniff, Chairman, Parks and Rec Committee, the RTM. I'm here.
Patty Baumgardner, I'm Vice Chair of the Parks and Rec Committee of the RTM with Adele.
Pam Geary, Director of Parks and Recreation in Darien.
Mary Louise Morgan, Commission Member, Park and Rec.
And Lori Bora, Commission Chair, Parks and Rec.
I'm Susan Daly. I'm on the Parks and Recs Commission and apparently also chair of this committee.
It would appear.
And then Jen and
Hi, I'm Jennifer Montanaro, President of the Darien Athletic Foundation. And we are hoping that we can somehow help out with this project.
Excellent.
And I'm Dan Biggs, landscape architect with Weston Sampson. I've been around for a while, so I know many faces. Nice to see everybody again. And been working on this since 2017, Pam? Dare I say that?
Dare, you dare.
Just to go back a little bit, in our last meeting that didn't comprise of everybody here, we looked at the plan that was put together by Weston and Sampson, which was an excellent plan, and kind of thought of ways that we can bring the cost down, I think, and just rethink the space in general. So Dan was kind enough to then put together new drawings, I should say, and also a budget, right? Does everybody in the meeting have that? Cam?
No, but Dan's gonna share his screen today.
Okay. I guess he could steer us through, and then we'll also make sure everybody gets a copy of them. It's pretty hard to see anyway online. So it'll be great if Dan brings us through it, if you don't mind starting out with that.
Can I add one thing just for everybody's information? So originally, after Dan had designed the project, then Darien Athletic Foundation, we were working with them behind the scenes, and they had their trusted contractor, FGB, quote it, and they quoted it at 1.9. Originally, Weston and Sampson they had their general quote, which I believe was about between 1.3, 1.5. Then FGB came back at 1.9. Then basically the pandemic hit. Then we came back to Dan because we knew that prices were increasing. And we met with Dan to see if we could make some mindful changes and get it requoted and see what that came in at. And so it's all yours now, Dan. Oh, we can't hear you, Dan.
Yep. Yeah. How about now? Good. I have like 6 screens. It's confusing. So, well, thank you, everyone. So I went back and was looking through my files. Pam, I connected a couple hours ago or an hour ago. And I think the last time we presented was in 2019 officially, possibly for EPC approvals. But I'm going to give a really, really quick history on how we got to where we are to share with you. But most of you are aware of this. But it really started with a conversation about Short Lane when that property was acquired almost 10 years ago at this point, and how do we integrate that site into the Weed Beach parcel park area as a whole. So as many is aware, on Nearwater Lane, project site of Short Lane is here in red, and then the greater Weed Beach parcel is here with the wooded in the backside and the gatehouse as you enter before getting to the court areas. So we had that conversation, how do we integrate, and that really what spawned the idea of having trails and a meadow within the project area. I'm not going to go through these photos, but everyone's really aware with what's out there now, varying from beaches to the playground area to some wetlands in the backside, wetlands in the short lane side. Just varying topography throughout that we've been working with for several years to kind of come up with a cohesive plan for the site. The progress that has happened up until this point, and forgive me if I've missed any dates after 2020, but life doesn't seem to have begun until 2020, so everything's a blur before that time. But back in 2019, looked short lane, we had some meetings, some review meetings, and we presented, it looks like in 2019, there was a presentation of gifts to the board, but actually Pam questioned if that happened because of so much going on. Possibly with an idea that we're going to do that. That's pre-COVID, obviously. And we had some status review meetings to the RTM and the Parks and Rec Commission in 2019. And then just before COVID hit, we had EPC submissions and approvals for the project. Since then, it kind of was put on the shelf a little bit, knowing that we weren't sure where this was going to land. We have had the more recent conversations about bringing it back and revising the plan to something that the town could work with and implement. So the overall plan, really quickly, the idea was about a mile loop around the perimeter of the park area. There was a small fitness circuit length, kind of consolidating the fitness equipment that exists now within the backs of the property. There's some fitness equipment back here. I think there's even some back in here, but we're going to consolidate that as much as possible. And then really having that loop extend with a boardwalk along the top side of the beach that basically went from the existing bathhouse out towards where the Darien Junior Sailing Club has their boats stored. Really, the idea was to have this as an integrated connection so people could get from the bathhouse along the beach, enjoy the sand and the beach views, but also have the meadow space function as an outdoor recreation area, have small gatherings of a lawn area here on the knoll overlooking the little plaza with the water on the backside. So that's really the general gist of what we were looking at. As I mentioned, there's a wetland area, so we have the backside where EPC approvals was to kind of consolidate some wetland areas and really restore this as an environmental feature here on the short lane parcel. The wetland that's along Brush Island Road really would be protected in place. We weren't really going to touch that at all. We would have a crossing of the main drive here as a raised crosswalk, just so pedestrians and maybe cyclists or anyone can really cross the road safely. A nice crossing there to be able to do the loop around the trail and really end up back at the bathhouse and enjoy these overlooks of the water itself.
Dan, can I add one thing?
Sure.
So from what I understood, we would have to have removed some of the wetlands where the meadow areas, and we would have extended those and mitigated those into the far wetland that you said that we wouldn't be touching. I believe that we were going to be increasing that wetland because of removing the wetland where the meadow is.
Yeah, so there's actually 5 fragmented wetlands within this site. Some of them are here under the backside of that wall. There's a little low area depression. Then there's a couple small ones up here. So this is an enhanced and enlarged wetland area that mitigates for the removals of 1,
Okay.
2, 3, and 4, very small pocket wetlands.
All right, got it.
Yep. But this back here, just for everyone's knowledge, is tidal influenced, and we were not touching that. It actually has a connection to the tidal waters here under Brush Island Road. So we did not look to have that restored or to mitigate any impacts to that wetland. As I mentioned, the boardwalk will extend, but also providing storage area for the junior sailing club, just so that they would have a nice landing zone, place to store their boats still on the property, and just integrated, interconnected network of pathways, but also the informal parking that exists now, we formalized as part of this plan to expand the parking area into the short lane parcel. And Susan, correct me if I'm wrong, the original plan, Weed Beach did have some of these components. At that time, they were value engineered out. So some of these are ideas that kind of have come forward from that process as well. But this was once proposed to be a established parking area, not just informal.
Yeah, we did have the front boardwalk in the original plan,
Okay.
and the parking lot, having a more parking lot right there, definitely also. Those are two pieces that we had to take out because of cost.
Okay. Quick photos, raised crosswalk here, fairly simple. Probably have seen many of them. It's very subtle to the motorist, but it's better for pedestrians. They have a nice level crossing. It does give alerting to drivers to slow down and to be aware of a crossing in the park zone. At the time, we were talking about having asphalt pathways throughout, but we have since pulled back, and I'll share those changes that have happened most recently. But an asphalt path, which many have walked on, would look as such, with a shoulder for safe passway and access, visibility. The boardwalk, we looked at multiple material types early in the process. We looked at IPA wood boardwalk surfacing. We looked at pressure treated, looked at concrete. But really we're striving to have a material that would not only be aesthetically pleasing and kind of fit the context of the park, but also be durable and be able to maintainable by park staff efficiently for many years. Again, looking at some of the different boat storage materials. Currently, the boats are stored on sawhorses of sort on top of an asphalt pathway. And so we put them on top of a gravel paved surface. So it's more of a stone, but it can still have the wheels for the dollies to roll the boats out into the water. The existing fitness equipment is set inside of grass areas and would have more of a formal spot either on concrete or stone dust. We haven't worked those details out yet, but a more consolidated fitness area so users could have one place to go go through a whole circuit of stations, fitness circuit. The boardwalks, when we talked about them, the idea was having them connect along the top of the beach area, but also create different scenic overlook spots that users could sit and enjoy over the beach. So as you can see here, the boardwalk itself is slightly raised, then it becomes level with the beach itself, so you could walk from the parking lot straight out to the beach, and then it inclines or rises a little bit, so you can have seating on one side and then raised seating in the back side. This has been tweaked, massaged a little bit since this graphic was created a couple of years ago, but the idea is still relatively there of having that difference of spaces for people to be sitting overlooking the beach area. Just a graphic of the short lane parcel. I mentioned the parking area here, formalized adjacent to existing parking, a paver area, plaza space where you can look along into the plaza or out towards the water. The beach area would be expanded along the short lane parcel. As you know, the existing wall kind of necks in towards the water, so this beach area would be widened for more sand area. The boat storage, as I mentioned, we did hear during some of the abutter conversations, just protecting the view and not having it so open, because this was once a single family residence parcel, just really preserving that tree buffer along near Water Lane. And I mentioned having the restored boardwalk with wetland below and the backside of this small loop. So the plan hasn't changed too much, but a couple of things I did want to highlight. You can see the general layout of most of the pathways are the same. something that we did come up with from cost savings, just also thinking about the potential kind of impact to the lay of the land, is that this pathway would be a 6-foot wide stone dust path connecting around the loop. Here bubbled, this at one time was another pathway, but we reduced that to a 4-foot wide wood chip path, so less impact. If you go from the road, there's a little bit of a knoll for those that walked here, kind of on top of overlooking the tennis courts, the court areas. This would be less impact and really just mulch path.
Can you say that again? I'm just taking the notes. So it's
Sure.
the changes are the 6 feet wide pathway that's stone dust. That's the major one all the way around. But what did you say was going to be wood chipped?
This is a 4-foot wide wood chip connector from the road towards the back wetland.
Okay.
Yep. Then the stone dust path connects around, and it really ties in to where the existing sidewalk pathway is. This would be an 8-foot wide asphalt path, basically parallel to the parking areas and in front of the bathhouse.
Asphalt?
Asphalt.
Did you say asphalt?
Yep. Pavement. Yep.
Okay.
And then that ties into a 10-foot wide boardwalk that extends along the top of the beach. It does bow out a couple of spots just to give a little additional width, I think up to 16 feet, but that would be, it varies. It's not the whole length.
And just to reiterate, Dan and Patty, the 4-foot wide chips, that connection there originally was the same material all around. We were looking to see that, you know, people could, you know, use strollers and bikes just like Highland. But when we came back and really revisited the plan to try to reduce cost, we changed the material.
Yep, exactly.
Pam and Dan, though, would the offset be that there'll be more maintenance cost over the years because we know that the chips deteriorate pretty quickly, so they would have to be replaced, correct?
Sure.
Yeah, you know, one, from a usability standpoint, you're going to have fewer users that can use it, say, with a wheeled users. It's more going to be from a walker standpoint. It would have additional maintenance due to the degrading of the wood chips themselves. That's not a huge lift. You know, you can get wood chips pretty easily and pretty easy just to spread them out. But it does take some maintenance because you're going to get more encroachment of the vegetation on the sides and coming in through the wood chips or onto the sides of the pathway corridor itself. But yeah, maintenance is definitely increased to some degree along the wood chips. And stone dust versus asphalt, you're going to get more susceptible to washouts. You're going to just have, you know, it's a natural material. It's going to allow water to infiltrate to some degree, but you're going to have more care for the stone dust overall.
So it would seem to me we would have to have numbers, because I know we'll be asked this question, of sort of on an annual or every 5-year, whatever the basis is, you know, if we don't do the asphalt, we save X amount of money, but over 10 years, you know, what's, you know, the incremental maintenance cost going to be? We're going to need to know those numbers.
I agree, and I think that's something this group is going to have to really work on, because, you know, you look at the maintenance at Highland with that pathway, our guys that hardly have to do anything.
You know,
granted, we're a couple of years in, but
Yeah, but we're near the water. This is a different layout. You know, we're down near the water.
We were
So-
trying also for it to get more of a natural feel there, to be honest with you. I thought, because I remember, especially at the EPC meetings, I think some of it was like, wow, look at all that material putting in that's not natural. And we felt that by putting in the wood chips, it not only saved money, but it gave it more of a back to nature feel. And, you know, and that the volume of people that are just trying to loop, they'll be on the more maintained trail. And that this was just for nature lovers, maybe people wanting to look at for birds, you know, it just has a different vibe. So I didn't look at it just from a cost standpoint. I looked at it from like, we're being outdoors. It doesn't always have to be paved. that's.
Yeah, no, and I understand that, Susan, and I even had one resident down there who's been a lifelong resident kind of corner me in CVS one day, and she goes, well, here you're going to pave that, and we have flooding, and please don't. So I understand that, but we will need to be prepared to
Oh, I get
answer
it.
the question of what the maintenance will be, because we will be asked. I am
Yeah.
100% we will be asked. So we need to
Right.
have those numbers and say, this is the trade-off, but I agree with you. It's not that there aren't benefits to being more natural.
Oh, no. And the other thing, having been a veteran of many of these trail maintenance programs with the Scouts and working with town on them, the
Mhm.
chips are pretty easy to come by because we actually have a huge chip pile near the dump. And, I think the material, there's like a marginal cost for that. It's just like you said, it's the spreading and putting it out there and replacing. But I feel like if we can bring, the parks crew can bring equipment and dump it, it's actually pretty easy to spread chips.
Okay.
I mean, we could probably do it as a Boy Scout project or a Cub Scout project. I've done them during the holidays.
He's also talking about the crushed stone and the maintenance behind that as well, right, Lori?
Well, all of it, yeah, all of it. I mean, I can hear the RTM committees and the Board of Finance asking now. I mean,
Yeah, but it'll be a balance between, are you asphalting, down by the water? So
Yep,
we'll
understood.
be prepared with all the answers.
Yep, that's all. Yep, that's my only point.
Can I ask, what is the maintenance of crushed stone? You have to roll it? What do you do?
Yeah, so the biggest issue with crushed stone is the washout locations, because you can get adjacent water simply just seeping through and washing out, and backfilling that, rolling, tamping those locations, and really spreading a clean, cover over and sporadically. So if you think that asphalt, you can replace a trail, say 15 to 20 years, a stone dust path really is going to be like 6 to 8, very, very crudely.
Can I tell you a little bit about the cross-country path at the high school? Because I think we've hit every obstacle there is to hit between the town-owned property as well as the school. The thing that, looking back now, having now had that path for a couple of years, we've had several storms that we were unprepared for. The fear that, and I was talking to FGB about this, hindsight's always 2020. What's so compelling about in New Canaan about their pathway is they don't use a stone dust. And I think we all were hopeful that the stone dust, because we were really doing it because the coaches requested it, because they liked the ability that the kids can use their spiked running shoes, and they didn't feel like they were running on pebbles. Hindsight, probably should do a little bit larger of a stone, similar to how they have in New Canaan, because it's a little bit heavier and the washout would be less frequent. The cross-country path, not in the part on the high school, has quite a bit of different heights and whatnot, and that's always where it washes out. It's not. I mean, it's super easy to have a pile of it there to be able to throw it back on. We call somebody, roll it, or even tamp it. Enough people walking on it puts it back once it's been cured and settled, but it is a maintenance thing, one that I didn't think we all had expected. But because if you've ever walked this actual path, which I've done now in every condition, there are really a lot of hills. And I'm not saying, I don't think asphalt is the appropriate footing, but maybe something a little bit heavier than the crushed stone, similar to what we're talking about, or some variation between the two of a little bit larger, might be better suited for this because of all the undulating, and the ups and the downs and the turns. You'd get less washout. That's, I've been over in New Canaan. I've taken samples of theirs. I've sent them to FGB, and we are talking with them a little bit about when we move forward on the different areas in the high school, maybe when it's time to upgrade it, we select something a little bit different, still natural, but a little bit larger, so the washout is less frequent. So I understand your concern about that.
Dan, can I ask you a question? So when you're talking about the trails in New Canaan, are you talking about the trails through the woods all the way around?
Yeah, the ones in Waveney, they just added a few extra trails in there.
Yeah, they did
I guess
a great job.
they did a fantastic job. But the
That's a-
footing is different.
Yeah,
It's different than the previous stone that they used to use. So I don't know if they also ran into that issue. So that's why maybe they've changed it. But certainly the one where you're coming in off of Mansfield, you're coming in. It's quite a grade there.
Right.
They've changed that altogether. There are some areas it's washed out and it's just muddy, and they're quick to fix them as well. So I mean, I have every confidence we would do the same thing. But I do think maybe they also learned that in those areas that are high traffic on a hill and with the potential of the water, the wood chips don't work, nor did the stone dust. So they've gone to a little bit heavier. Though I do know that this wood chip part that we were talking about really wasn't part of the loop per se. It's really, as we talked about, for those that want to get off the beaten path and be more natural, etc. So those are valid concerns you have about the washout in certain areas, and it may be something you consider a mix of a little bit heavier of a stone, not like a pea stone, but certainly something a little bit. I forget what it's called in between the stone dust and the other dust.
Yeah, Jen, I'll just add that if you think about stone dust being fine and small, right, and then we have say cobbles large, we try and make a mix that's a blend of the two, because then you have larger stones with smaller fines packing in between. It makes a different, definitely more stable surface. You just have to mix it or order it that way. So yeah.
Okay. All right.
Do you think there would be a cost increase for that, Dan, than what you've already like kind of priced out?
Not significantly of to note. It would change, but not dramatically compared to going to an asphalt or from like asphalt to wood chips, that dramatic of a change.
Okay, thanks.
Let's see. So I was just mentioning the wood chip connector in between. I mentioned the different widths and how those were varying. We pulled back some of the widths. And then we also bubbled out here of an alternate at one point for the parking area, that's something to be considered.
what kind of surface on the parking?
So we had planned that would be asphalt, but that is, for conversation for all. I think Susan, Jen, or Pam remind me of all the things that we had talked about, how to pull back the number as much as possible. I think that was just out there as something that we would.
Well, we also thought about phasing it,
True.
So right now it's dirt. We did think that it would look beautiful, cleaned up and as a regular parking lot with asphalt parking lot. But if, money becomes an issue, then maybe we can phase some of the pieces out, whether it be, the boardwalk and the meadow area for gatherings, and then come back and finish it off with the pathways. But again, there all can be different variations.
For the original Weed Beach parking lot, they were going to do like kind of, God, I can't remember, it was like interlocking like bricks that allowed water to go through, like it had triangles in it. You know what I'm talking about, Dan?
Permeable pavers.
Yes, I think it was permeable pavers, and obviously that we ran out of money for that. But the other thing I was going to say about that spot, I spend a lot of time there because I bring my dog, especially there for the winter off-leash program, and it gets very muddy. There are giant rocks sometimes in that parking lot. The surfacing is pretty, I would say, I wouldn't even want to drive on it. It's pretty unsafe. So I don't know if it's something that we can fix in-house, but I feel like if we're trying to attract more people to use the space, we're going to need every good spot we can get. And if we have parts that look like we're going off-roading, which sometimes I feel like when I drive on that side, I'm not sure that should be downgraded to like a phase too far into the future. So that's something to consider.
Yeah, I agree with Susan on that. There's a lot of rocks, and you figure in the summer a lot of people are in flip flops or very unsturdy shoes. It gets mud. It's just not great. It really, and I think we are going to need the parking. We're adding we're effectively adding parkland right now because now it's not usable. We're adding parkland. We know we have you know, I keep harping on this topic, but we have over 400 new apartments coming online. People without backyards, the beaches are going to be busy, and I think we're going to really, you know, need that extra parking, and it really is not good now. And then last year we had that issue with the bird that was nesting in the middle of it, so we like blocked off a whole section of it for weeks to protect the bird. I mean, it just
I love
I don't
that.
think, yeah, I know, but I just don't think we should be quick to give this up.
I have to say that when we reviewed this before, and it was on the RTM's agenda and then was pulled, so that's how far it got. I think it was on the October agenda. The only thing that really got pushback, well, primarily got pushback, was the boardwalk. Just have to bring that up. So if you were going to phase something, I would consider that. I have no idea how much money that would save.
It would save a substantial amount of money, but isn't that the point of this? To have a continuous loop? And you need something there.
You probably could have a loop without having a boardwalk.
How?
I thought the boardwalk is also part of the original plan, which is really nice. You know,
It's lovely, but it got taken out of the original plan for money too. So I just something to keep in mind. That's all.
And you know, in terms of the boardwalk as well, I think what's so special is there's a lot of people that can't enjoy the sand. And you know, it's hard. They have to sit in the bathhouse area because we don't have can't take a walk along the beach. So this, I think, really would open up the opportunity for so many people to stroll the beach where they normally can't. So I think the boardwalk is a really important piece of the project, but that's just my opinion.
Dan, do we have to drill down to do the boardwalk? Somehow I feel like I remember reading, putting in pilings and drilling down. Can you speak to that?
Yep. So the boardwalk is basically on foundations with likely helical piers. They're either going to be micropiles or helical piers. Basically, you screw into the ground a foundation support system that then the boardwalk then sits upon. So it will look like it's sitting on top of the sand, but really its foundation is below grade. Just like we would have on our home deck. Usually that's with a concrete pier. That'd be the similar of a micro pile, but a foundation that goes in the ground and stability, not only from holding the boardwalk in place, but also if we do have a storm surge, we don't want this to float away, more or less. You know, we want to make sure it's secure and stable to withstand a typical storm event or just normal use within a public park.
How deep do you have to drill down?
I have to look back at our geotech report, but they could be 15 feet. Just rough idea. Yeah.
Yeah, do you have a price now for the boardwalk?
Yep. Let me go to the next slide. So forgive me if you have to squint a little. There's a lot of numbers. What I brought forward was some of the past costs here on the right-hand side from 2019 up to the 2020 sum that is here at the bottom of the page. I don't believe I have broken out the boardwalk itself. Let me just see. Here's 200. If you want to say about $800,000, I'm just quickly looking at the numbers, would be for the boardwalk itself, maybe a little bit more.
I just sent everybody an email too of these costs.
Okay. And you can see the numbers that are below for the wood chip path and the asphalt parking area that we broke out as alternates just in terms of our conversations. But looking at 2.5 at this point, I would note that numbers are fluctuating significantly right now, whether it's from oil costs to availability of wood to steel prices. So costs are changing I can't predict whether they're going up or down, but I haven't seen recently any numbers going down, just for a fact, as just a strange time.
Well, they
Zero
just
cost.
reported this morning at the Board of Selectmen meeting that there were steel prices, there were two items, steel prices and something else that went up on projects we're doing for the school.
Yep, I believe it. And again, when contractors put quotes together, they may not hold their numbers for more than 30 days. Some are up, as less as 7 to 14 days, depends on the material. So again, this is a number I did now last month. Not saying it's outdated, but there's just a lot of fluctuation happening with costs right now.
Can you just remind us the length of, is the boardwalk going all the way around except for the wood path, or is it predominantly just in the front where the beach is?
Yeah, the boardwalk is proposed to extend from the existing bathhouse, basically out along the top of the sand to just beyond where the current junior sailing club stores their boats.
Okay, so it's from that area to that area, and that's the 800 grand for that
More or
area.
less. Yeah.
And about, do you know what that distance is, Dan? Is it like a quarter mile or not?
Yeah, I had it here, 625 feet. So under a quarter of a mile. Maybe like a tenth to 0.15 miles.
It's here for the boardwalk that it's precast concrete, the main boardwalk, or is it? Is that can you hear me?
Yeah,
Dan?
you're good. Yeah, I can.
Did you hear my question about the boardwalk? What it's made?
Were you asking if it's concrete or wood? I think we have put in here as the boardwalk that is in the back. There is a small boardwalk here that was a precast concrete material,
right
here. And then I believe the one in the front is
Supposed to be iPay.
Yeah, iPay Boardwalk.
Okay.
I'm seeing here precast concrete.
I just see a lot of precast concrete. That's why I was trying to figure out.
I'll have to check and see. I do see line 6 is precast concrete main boardwalk. I'll check and I'll confirm that.
You think that looks right for the unit cost? That's what I'm asking.
$80 a square foot
for precast, or do you think that's iPay?
No, I think that's a precast cost.
Yeah, so I think that's higher than it should be if we're going to go to iPay, don't you think?
I believe so. I have to look and see what we had for the cost up below. So for everyone's knowledge, a precast concrete comes in, I would say, Lego bricks, long concrete slabs that sit on top of a concrete joist that run the length of the trail. The same thing happens with wood, but the wood is thinner, so you have more members below that handle the same load. So you may have a thicker concrete top with a same size of joists. When you do wood deck, we have a thinner deck with a thicker base. So I just check those, compare. It doesn't look too far off, to be honest with you. The numbers may change, one up, one down, but I'll double check that for you.
Yeah, I just wasn't sure because I noticed that it says precast, and I
just
want to clarify that.
Oh, for sure.
Are you done, Dan?
Yeah, I'm good. My next slide was just things we still had to do, but I think we have other things to work through as well in terms of the working group. So I'm good.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. If anybody, I know we've already peppered you with questions, but does anybody have more questions about what Dan's done with this proposal?
When I'd
Doesn't
like
look-
to ask a P&Z question. When it went before P&Z, because this is a while ago, and it had to get approved, what were they approving? And did, you know, was it kind of a zoning or was it environmental? Was EPC?
So we did an EPC review and approval that was early. Final approval came in January of 2020. And I believe we were slated to be on the next agenda within a couple of months for plan zoning review. As I see here, as still to be done as a commission meeting and public hearing on our lists. I don't remember if that was, I'll have to look and see in our files as to what was prompting the plan zoning review meeting.
Okay, so that's my question is what is it specifically that P&Z has to approve? You don't remember that?
Yeah, I can look and see if I exit out of this presentation, maybe I can find it
I
before.
think it was the grading, if there were any grading on the property, because EPC dealt with the environmental part of it, and P&Z would deal with any large grading issues on the property. I'm pretty sure that's what I remember.
And I want to also say we did a stormwater report. So I'll find it here in a minute.
Any other questions for Dan? I guess we should talk about the next item on the agenda, which is trying to figure out what we need to do as a committee to kind of move this forward. I think, there's obviously, dealing with cost issues and, how to work with the design, how we feel about the design. Do we think that we're actually serving the community with such a plan? I know Lori mentioned quite rightly so about the increase in residents that we're going to have that will want to use this space. So, I think any effort as a committee we can to maximize recreational space, being sympathetic to the natural environment is very important. And then with respect to the funding, talking to the Athletic Foundation, see if they are still willing to partner with us on this. Because that would change, obviously, how that would work. Okay, Pam, you have a question or a comment?
Yeah, I also wanted to add that we also left off speaking about, with Darien Athletic Foundation about whether or not we could move forward as partners and collaborate together, even with funding. So I had Wayne Fox, our town attorney, he had given me a call and we talked it through, but I have not followed up with him, and he hasn't followed up with me either right now on how he feels about that. Because that would mean that the town didn't go out to bid. That's how the Darien Athletic Foundation would like to use their own vendor. But the question was, why can't the town contribute and still collaborate with an organization that is willing to give such an incredible gift?
So would we be collaborating financially, or would we be collaborating by having Parks and Rec and Public Works do some of the clearing or work?
That
How
was
do
the original negotiating with the Darien Athletic Foundation, Darien Foundation, and the town. So there were 3 partners. And so clearly Darien Athletic Foundation had mentioned how they do their work is to use their own trusted vendor. They want no egg on their face. They want a great project, and they're going to then gift it back to the town. But the town was clear on its policies that we could, if that was the manner in which we wanted to move, we could only give in-kind service. We couldn't give any monetary service. But 2 years later, here we are talking about it again, saying, well, let's at least broach this subject to the town attorney and ask, can we do this? Is it possible to do this? That we share in the costs, and especially even if we can do some in-kind too, but if we do share in some costs, can Darien Athletic Foundation still go ahead and use their contractor? So
Here's a question too, Pam. Pam, also, if you broke it into parts, in other words, could they use their own contractor if they did the walking trail? And would that be okay if the town, if we did other parts, you know what I'm saying? Would that be acceptable? Okay.
Very good point. So I'll be discussing more with Wayne so that we can report back at the next meeting. So I think we also need to discuss, obviously a meeting schedule. If I'm gonna let Susan have the floor first before I talk about the meeting schedule.
Jennifer, are you still on?
Yes.
I just wanted to, I know, Dan, we had met and then Dan put this together with the estimate.
Right.
What do you think? I mean, are you still, in terms of the way you guys work, which I respect, working with your vendor only, or is this something, and you're looking at the number, I mean, Dan's given us a number that, isn't fixed, obviously, but is revised from the original number, with some post-COVID or whatever we call it now, we're in, cost situation. What are your thoughts on this number and the new some of the changes we've made to kind of make that number hopefully more tame?
Right. The number is really high. I had a feeling it was going to be high. I didn't think it was going to be this high. We don't have this money. This would have to be a fundraise. And the last time I presented this to my board, we did not have a quorum, so I wasn't able to, talk to my entire board about it, because it would require them to step up and also help, do some sort of a fundraiser in order to be able to help out. I don't know. It's a tough one. The number's a lot higher than I thought it was going to be.
What number did you think it would be, Jen?
I
Or
mean,
what
we
number
had gotten
did you
it.
think you were comfortable
Sorry.
with? Or what number did you think you or they would be comfortable with?
I don't know. We have a new board, so we have several new folks on it. They joined right before COVID, and we've sort of been sitting on our hands. Other than the fact that I did the cross country path and sort of did that alone, no one really got involved. So I don't know the level of interest, and that's what I've been trying to gauge. You bring new members on, it's not necessarily got the same spirit that you had with the previous members who, we're all gung ho for Town of Darien. Let's do it. I don't know. I have to have another meeting with them, based on these findings. I was hoping to find out from Wayne Fox what he came back with, because we did have that meeting with him and just said, help us understand what the parameters, what we can and what we can't do. Can we split it? Can we not? Does it always have to be value in kind? Can it be a portion? I mean, this has all the bells and whistles in it, all of them. It's got the exercise area. I mean, it's got everything in it. So maybe that's why it's a little more costly. But even so, the just even do the walking path is coming in, and that would include obviously the boardwalk and the footings and all and whatnot. I mean, it's high. I mean, it's $1 million project. Right there. I don't know. I have to kind of run it by them and see, are you willing to roll up your sleeves and do a fundraiser? Because we don't have the money to sit and just write a check to fund it. I mean, we could always go back to Darien Foundation for sure. But it's been a couple of years, they said, bring us back in if you guys can tighten this up a little bit. But, I think they'll probably run into the same situation that I'm running into. New members, it's been a couple of years. They've been doing other things, other focuses. I don't know that they'd be willing to put in $500,000 for this and match us.
I wonder if, just being a veteran of Wheat Beach 1 or whatever you call it now, I don't know if Dan, if there's a way to kind of create a plan where what it would look like if we phased it and having numbers for each, or actually separating pieces of it so that we could see maybe what the foundation can do and what the town can do. Because when we did the playground, I guess Peter Havel said to us, that's you guys, you do that, you fundraise it, it's your project, you don't have to worry about bidding. you do every piece of it, and then we then turned around. I mean, it's a different amount of money, Jen. I'm not,
Yeah.
this what you guys did. And then we were able to come back and gift the $250,000 gift back to the town. So my question to Dan is there any way we could, that logically, where people are not stepping on each other or whatever it might be, do parts of it? I know maybe it's impossible, but I just thought we should give it a try. What if it's the parking lot? I'm just making that up. I don't know what it is. But I just think that if we do need to start cutting things off or doing some, we called it value engineering when we were doing Weed Beach. If
Right.
we need to figure out a way to get something done that we can afford and pay for, I just want to move forward. I just don't want it to sit here and say, well, we don't have $2.5 million and now we're stuck. I want some progress. And what we did with the playground, we were able to pull that out and do it, fundraise it for it. And then we forced the town to move forward with the rest of the project because we had already done our part, which was the playground. Do you see what I'm saying, Jen? And it eventually led to a very nice revitalized Weed Beach area. So I want to see us move forward in some way or manner because people are moving into town. They're going to enjoy the outdoors, weather's, I just think something, as a committee, I'd like to see us do. But I also don't want to put the onus only on the Darien Athletic Foundation, but I want to see if there's a way for us to work together, because I think this would be a great partnership. We can figure out how that would work logistically and financially.
I think that's a great idea, and I think that we have all the numbers here. They're all written down, and certainly all of us should take a shot at, kind of, like Adele likes the pathway without the boardwalk. Well, maybe somebody wants to do the boardwalk. Well, let's put out some numbers and let's have some, opportunities to see what pieces might, work for all of us that we agree that make a nice recommendation to the commission.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just not sure I'm inclined to start breaking this apart and piecemealing it before we go forward in our ask. We talked about it at the selectmen's meeting during the budget. They said, set it aside now because your numbers are stale. That was fair. And they said, this isn't something that has to go through the normal budget cycle. And, tighten it up, get back to work, roll up your sleeves, and then come back and talk to us. And that's what I think we need to do. I am not, you guys know me, I'm not going to be shy about standing in front of the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Finance and the RTM and saying, are you willing to invest in your park property or aren't you? Because this commission believes in this. We've been sitting on this property for 10 stinking years. The town has not paid for any major projects since Weed Beach. It's time for the community to step up and say we value our parklands or we don't. We've all read dozens of articles about how during the pandemic, parks have been rediscovered, they're essential services, they commit to the health and well-being. There's a fantastic article, I got it right here, from NPRA about they're trying to come up with a model to actually figure out how to place economic value on parks, but they don't have it quite ready yet. But I, for one, will not be shy about standing in front of these commissions and boards and saying, we need to step up and fund our parks. And if you're not willing, then you need to publicly say so. But I for one, am not going to start piecemealing this before we ask and say, look, we screwed around all these years, excuse my French, it was going to cost this, now it's going to cost that. Here we are. It's just like the painting at Weed Beach. And luckily the Board of Finance came back and said, this is stupid. It's $15,000. At least I know some of the members went down. They took a look at it. They're like, this is ridiculous. Of course you should have the money now. Get the thing painted. It looks terrible and it's going to cost us more money. So I'm just not going to be shy. I won't.
And we bring back into the point, Lori, that part of the master plan, the number one thing was more walking trails. So we just keep
walking trails. Yep. And, we cite
the Darien Athletic Foundation, Jen. I know that that's, one of the things that was a core value for you all as well.
Yep. And we cite in our standards of care about, high in the master plan findings was that people wanted parks that were, well maintained and usable. And, it's time. These units are coming online really fast. I mean, really fast. And and there's a lot of construction going on in town that's going to raise the tax base. I don't know. I don't want to be shy about it and go back with our first salvo going, well, we could cut this, we could cut that.
This wasn't from, I think, I'm sorry if you misunderstood what I was trying to bring up. I guess if anybody, I really would love to see this get completed the way it's been designed and envisioned. I'm just trying to figure out a way where if we can get the Darien Athletic Foundation to partner with us so that, because I feel like I'll go to 2.5 and I'll go to the town, but I feel like if we can say we have a partner that's willing to work with us on a piece of it, it's not much
absolutely
forward. And as much as I'd like to put, the money into Wheat Beach, I love Wheat Beach. I feel like there's also Pear Tree, there's other priorities for me. And if we have a partner that would help us financially, I'd rather explore that option. So then I could say, well, we've been able to save some money, with a partner here, Pear Tree, where we don't have a partner. If we need to do work there, I feel more comfortable than pushing forward and asking for more money. That's what I'm saying.
Okay, no, and I agree with that, Susan. I absolutely agree with that. But
money in like, oh, we're not going to do this because of this and that. I mean, I think we don't have a ton of bells and whistles outside of the boardwalk. The rest of it's pretty straightforward. I mean, but I do want to figure out a way we can work with the Darien Athletic Foundation. And I guess that's what I'm trying to get, that they can work with us either with their contractor or whatever. I just don't know what it is. But if you want to come forward as a committee and just go straight to the Board of Selectmen on this, then we'll do that. But if we could figure out a way to work with the foundation, I'd like to do that first. So then,
that's fine. I guess we just need to understand the potential timeline.
Yeah. So the question then becomes, is there a way to do it so that we can work with Jen? And it sounds like Pam has already talked to Wayne Fox to see if there is a way to do it. Let's finish that conversation. I think we need to get the answer for that, because that will impact greatly how the funding will work, right? And then if it turns out that we can, then it sounds like a bit of a sprint to get numbers that are going to stick. Right? It sounds like it's a month from when we get a number to when it becomes stale, right? Or at least it's no longer abided by because the contractor won't guarantee that pricing, right? So there is a bit of a timing issue here that I see also. So Jen, do you think are you going to go back to FGB? I know that Dan did these numbers, and
Yeah, I am. I'm going to go back to FGB. I'm going to ask him to take a look at the project again. It's changed since the last time I sent him the drawings, and just ask him to pull out path only. Let's just start with that, right?
Let's do that.
So what would that cost? Where would we, what does that look like?
Okay, that sounds really great. If you don't mind doing that, I'd really appreciate it. And then Pam, if you don't mind going back to Wayne Fox and saying, hey, we really want to figure out if we can have part of it done by the foundation, and maybe they give it back to the town, and that way they have control over their event, their contractor.
Their piece.
No problem.
Susan Daly, for the notes, I didn't hear what Jen just said. She said pull out what? I'm just taking this for the minutes.
The path.
Okay, so what are you defining as the path? Are you defining the boardwalk all the way around as the path?
Well, that's what I want to find out. I want to go back to, one of the things that we ran into originally, I think when we met in Pam's office, and I brought FGB in to sort of whittle down the price and see where we could, make some modifications. One of our first meetings is that I think there's a little bit of a disagreement in the width as well as the structural footing that needs to be around the entire path. And I think at that time it was, it was designed or engineered so that maybe a semi could roll through, which you don't need a semi, so maybe over engineered a little bit. So I think, we agreed that you didn't need to have, little cars going to picking up the broken branches, that the staff there would just do it how they do it, either, wheelbarrows, golf cart, or whatever. But I don't know if we ever changed the engineering drawings, but I'll ask FGB again. I'll ask them if they can kind of go back in their notes and recall that, and now just sort of pull out and say, give me what it would take now that you've seen the different areas, what do you think is appropriate? And they might tell me that they can't without structural engineering, drawings, but maybe go off of what they previously had. We did not no such things like that for the cross-country path. And I think that's why the Darien Foundation and the DAF jumped on board with this, because we were like, perfect, we just did this. We know all the pitfalls. We know how it should be done. So I think that's why we're all really shocked. Frankly, I was a little surprised how much it cost at the high school, but we went back a couple of times and fixed what we thought should have been fixed. So, I agree. You do it right. You do it once, you do it right. I don't know, however, that the footings need to be as deep around the entire structure. Maybe hindsight's, like I would keep saying, it's 2020. Maybe the areas where there's a grade change might need to be offer a little bit more. But I don't know that they need to be that much. And I don't know how that will change the pricing. My guess is that it would change it quite a bit.
So it sounds like, do you think that, okay, you were going to get the pricing for the walkways, but that maybe FGB and Dan should talk a little bit about those footings for the boardwalk, like just nail it, just dial it in.
Right.
Make sure
Well,
that.
yeah, because the footings are not really, I never really considered that for the boardwalk, actually. It was the rest of it that I thought was a little bit over-engineered. It didn't need to be able to maintain a truck. So,
yeah, I agree.
Yeah, so it was back when we had asphalt for all of our pathways. If I remember, we had a sub base, and they came back. And here's the thing: you can do less sub base. You could do a thinner section of asphalt. There's nothing like that. It's going to come down to how long it lasts. Ultimately, what is used on top of it. So when we design trails, I'm balancing the instant cost when the contractor is building something to how long Pam's going to live with replacing asphalt sections. Really, if she
so that was for the asphalt?
Yeah, so you're talking about the sub base for asphalt, not for any structural components of the boardwalk. When I looked at their value engineering list, I think we pulled out like $300,000 or some number. We were like, you could pull out this, you could we can thin things out for sure, but it's always that upfront cost versus the long-term costs that's going to be maintained by the town. And that's really where the balance is. What's the happy medium we could go to 8-inch sub base of the pathways, sure. When you drive a Ford Ranger on, maybe you shouldn't do that because it's not going to handle that loading when they load it up with stone to fix down the pathway, right? So it's just one of those, what's the cost benefit analysis for what they're putting in instantly versus long term? So we can work through that with them.
What kind of trucks are going to be on the trails too? Like, because I think about Tilly, how they had to redo those pathways because they're driving trucks on it. And the question is, for our trail now, are we going to expect trucks to drive on it? And I'm thinking, hopefully not. I don't see it as a road because it's more of a walking path with some vehicles that need to, or maybe smaller blowers that need to maintain it. Because I know that Pam has a lot of equipment. I really don't think it needs to be rated for driving pickup trucks per se, personally. But who knows? There might be spots we might want to reinforce if we think. Maybe the spot where you're going to be dumping chips, just ideas like that, because that's going to require bigger equipment. So, okay, go ahead, Pam, since you obviously the expert.
Yeah, so I just want to jump because you mentioned, obviously the work and the maintenance behind it. So Sandy's also going to be part of this group, this working group. I told him we hadn't really set a regular schedule yet. So if it works that we can find a time for all of us from 8 o'clock to 3 o'clock, then that would certainly be beneficial to him. He's home at 3. It is virtual meetings, but he says he has a really difficult time once his kids see him. So again, I told him that I'd certainly talk to him. He doesn't mind staying behind and doing a meeting. If it's 4 o'clock, the time that works for everybody, and that's it, then that's okay. But I told him that we would be discussing that tonight.
Okay. I mean, that's fair, obviously. Why don't we, just because it's getting late, I hate long meetings. After an hour, I start to have to run off also myself. Why don't we have Pam, I think just you nailing down what needs to be done with Wayne Fox. Jen, if you don't mind going to FGB and looking at this new, plan and seeing if there's a way it could work for you guys and them, and maybe interfacing with Dan Biggs to see if there's any like structural questions about what we really need in terms of to have a great path and walkway. And then, so the next thing then is like just setting a regular meeting schedule for the group, because I think that'll help us stay on track and hopefully have as many people that are involved, because I think we're missing one RTM Parks and Recs Committee member and also Sandy right now.
Happy.
So what do people think in terms of, I mean, I think for the other committee we're on, we said 3 weeks, but is that too much, little? What are people thinking about having scheduled meetings every 3 weeks? Or would you prefer to go 2? I just want to leave enough time in between so people could actually get work done, because I think sometimes, if it's too close, or if it's too far into the future, you don't get the work done. Is 3 weeks okay for everybody, or what do you think, Pam?
I think 3 is good.
Patty, Dan, whoever needs to. Jen, what do you think?
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay, cool.
3 weeks. 2 weeks doesn't really, especially when you're going back to other committees and you're relying on other people to kind of turn around with answers.
Right.
It's not that much time.
Well, let's do the 3 weeks. How about timing of the day? I mean, was 4 o'clock, is that okay, Pam? You think would that work for Sandy, or what do people think?
The daytime would be better for him.
So that would be what time? Like,
well, morning through 3 o'clock would work good for him. But again, it's not just about him. So he certainly will make time.
I think this committee's a little different. When we were doing playground, everybody was like, oh, get it done in the morning early. Do people have preferences just off the top of their head? Or should we do like a doodle or something to make sure we get everybody at a certain time? What do you guys think?
Personally, I would prefer, during my workday.
Yeah, I get it. No. So like, what is that, 10 a.m.? I mean,
know 8 to 5, I'm available.
What do you, how about Jen? What is your schedule like? I know you're.
That's my schedule's unpredictable. So I mean, I'll do my best. During the mornings are really tough for me.
Okay, so let's not do the mornings then, because we want you there.
Maybe we do 3 o'clock and then Sandy finishes work and just stays a little longer, once every 3 weeks. That seems like a fair.
Yeah, why don't we do that? Every 3 p.m. Is that okay for you, Jen, you think? Or,
yeah, that should work.
Okay, why don't we do that? And we're on Tuesdays. Is that okay for people also, day of the week wise? Okay. So let's set the next meeting. I'm sorry if I don't have let me just grab my calendar. So we'll be doing, the next meeting would be
May 10th.
17th, am I right?
No,
May
no,
10th.
10th, right? Is it the 10th?
May 10th.
May 10th. May 10th at 3 p.m.
Correct.
Why don't we do that so we have something in the book? And everybody okay?
Dan, could you send around the slideshow presentation?
Yeah, that'd be great.
That would be very helpful.
Thank you. Like a good email chain for everybody on it, if possible. Make sure because I feel like sometimes we miss somebody. So make sure, and maybe we should have a list of the committee members, Pam, and make sure then check off who's getting the emails properly. And I think that's it. Really sorry, I don't like, it's 5:13, so I want to keep it close to an hour. I think we got a lot done. Thank you guys very much for your time. Really appreciate it, and your feedback. Let's go on to the next meeting, and if you have any suggestions for what you'd like to talk about at the next meeting, send it to Pam and we'll put it on the agenda if there's a big topic, or if you want Dan to drill down on something about you want to see better pictures of the boardwalk or whatever it might be, we could do stuff like that, right? Go ahead, Pam. Are you okay? Was that the thumbs up? Okay, sorry. Jen, thanks again for your time and appreciate it.
Okay, thanks everyone.
Thank you, Jen.
We'll-
Thank you, Dan.
We want to make this project happen. It's such a great project. So thank you for your time, guys. So do we need to do a vote for adjournment or do we just adjourn?
Make a motion.
I'm so unfamiliar with these committee meetings. I'm so used to the commission meetings, but I guess this meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much for your time, guys.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.